5 mysteries of the outback. Ooh.
Number 5. The Marree Man. The Marree Man, or also known as Stewart's Giant, is a modern geoglyph constructed in 1998 under mysterious circumstances. The Marree Man, so named because of its close proximity to the small outback town of Marree in South Australia, 700 kilometres north of Adelaide. The figure is 2.7 kilometres or 1.7 miles tall.
I'm sure we've got something similar over here in the UK, not too far from me. There's one of a big horse on a hill. I'm sure there's one of a man on a hill with his willy. I'm sure there is. And we're like, who made this?
With a perimeter of 28 kilometres
That's quite big.
or 17 miles, extending over an area of about 2.5 square kilometres.
So this is on like another level, because the ones in the UK are not that big. This is absolutely ginormous.
620 acres. The figure is of an Aboriginal Australian man holding a boomerang. It was first spotted by a charter pilot in June 1998. He states, "It was so big I assumed everyone would know about it. But when I landed back in town, no one had heard about it." He goes on to say that the townspeople thought he was delirious as he tried to explain the epic proportions of the geoglyph, saying that he spotted it from 6,000 feet in the air.
I could only assume people wouldn't have seen it because it looks like it's surrounded by kind of big hills, mountains, and therefore who's going to see someone doing that? But then who did it? That's the big thing, isn't it? Who did it and how did they do it?
Later, some mysterious faxes appeared addressed to local businesses and later the media. They inevitably led those interested in the strange figure on a sort of strange treasure hunt, which the faxes promised more information. Some of the clues ended up in Dorset, England, buried near other giant geoglyphs.
There you go. They actually showed it. The man with a massive willy, but nowhere near as big.
Like the CERN giant. But alas, the trail went cold and the clues stopped coming. Today, no one has claimed authorship of this giant mystery, and it remains unsolved.
Oh, tell me, who do you think did it? Who did it? And how long? Just imagine how long that must have taken to do that, because that is on another level to the Stone Man in England.
Number 4, the Min Min lights. The Min Min lights, or ghost lights of Australia, are some of the strangest phenomenon to occur in the outback. The lights are said to appear as glowing orbs, almost always at night. They appear to hover above the ground, usually a few hundred feet from the witness, and also appear to have a mind of their own, with most witnesses saying that they follow or stalk them. The Min Min lights get their name from the now abandoned settlement of Min Min in Queensland, Australia, where they were first witnessed in 1910 by a stockman riding his horse near an old graveyard.
I could almost assume that someone at least would have said they're aliens. Alien spaceships.
As he rode down the highway, the light chased him until he reached another town and disappeared into thin air. Many people have had similar accounts and say that they have been chased by them as they travel by car, initially thinking it could be the headlights of a motorbike, only to realize that they are floating too high above the ground for it to be so.
What could it be? Certain particles in the air that when the light hits it, puzzled.
Also, the lights will appear to dance around and behave erratically. A few theories have arisen to explain this strange phenomenon, ranging from uranium ore deposits releasing gas, inverted mirages, and more frighteningly, UFOs.
Of course.
Today, one can even go on tours to experience those lights for themselves in Boulia, Queensland, where they offer a tour of the history and first-hand accounts called the Min Min Encounters. Today, this mystery remains unsolved.
Okay, I want to know, please, in the comments, if you have seen the Min Min lights, tell me what it was like. I'm going to bet no one has seen the Min Min lights on my subscribers and people watching this video. No one has seen it. That is my prediction.
Number 3, Lasseter's Lost Reef. As with many of the mysteries found on this list, this one is open to interpretation. Since its purported discovery more than 120 years ago, Lasseter's Reef a fabled gold-rich outback quartz vein, has eluded both fortune hunters and researchers. The fabulously rich gold deposit was apparently discovered by a Harold Bell Lasseter in either 1897 or 1911, depending on source. On the 14th of October 1929, Harold Bell Lasseter wrote a letter to the Kalgoorlie federal member Albert Green, claiming to have discovered a vast gold-bearing reef in Central Australia 18 years earlier, and that it was located at the western edge of the McDonnell Ranges. Several years prior, Lasseter had unsuccessfully tried to raise funds in order for an expedition to this fabled gold reef. It was only in 1930 that Harold Lasseter managed to raise interest during the worst economic recession of the 1930s, otherwise known as the Great Depression. He provided the story to the Australian Workers' Union. He states, "As a young man of 17..."
I'm sorry, I've got to interrupt. I have a feeling that is not Australia. Just a hunch. Or a hunchback.
I rode on horseback from Queensland to the West Australian goldfields, during which I stumbled across a huge gold reef, somewhere near the border between the Northern Territory and Western Australia. The reef was claimed to be laden with gold and measured some 7 miles, or 11.3 kilometres long, 4 to 7 feet high, and 12 feet wide. In 1930, Harold Lasseter managed to secure £50,000 in private funding to begin the expedition. This included a motorised vehicle, an aircraft, experienced bushmen, a gold prospector, an engineer, a Governor-General's aide, and several other men. The group endured logistical difficulties and physical hardships, including the loss of the plane. Many of the group, disbelieving the claims, departed Lasseter, leaving him alone in the desert with just a camel. 1 year later, a search for Lasseter was conducted. They found Lasseter's decomposed body at Winter's Glen and his personal effects in a cave at Hulls Creek, which included a diary. The diary tells of Lasseter's last moments, which include losing his camel shortly after the group disbanded. He was met by an Aboriginal tribe, who helped him, but eventually he met his demise due to desert blindness and malnutrition. A carved-out tree now marks his grave. Decades later, and many expeditions more, Lasseter's lost reef remains unfound.
That almost seems just one of those ones where you've been to a place, and I've seen different scenes like this, where you've been somewhere but you don't really know where you are, and you've seen, well, in this case, a gold field, gold reef, and you then go back and you can't remember where it is, and you end up spending a whole time just trying to find that previous location that you were at. And so he says it was there. Maybe he didn't actually. Maybe it wasn't really there, and it was visions or things like dehydration that gives you visions that of all this gold, and maybe it wasn't really there in the first place. Who knows?
Number 2, the disappearance of Azaria Chamberlain. Probably the most famous or infamous case on this list. The incident in question involves the disappearance of 9-month-old Azaria Chamberlain. In August 1980, Azaria's parents, Michael and Lindy Chamberlain, planned a camping trip in Northern Territory, but on the night of August 17, Azaria vanished from her family tent at Uluru. According to Lindy's story, a dingo entered the tent that Azaria was sleeping in and took and attacked the child, running off with her into the dark desert night. The initial police report supports this claim, but however, the Northern Territory Police were dissatisfied with her claim.
Surely the baby would have been in the same tent as the mum and dad, right? And you're telling me the mum and dad didn't realise that a dingo had come in, taken their baby? Really? That sounds dodgy, to be honest. That sounds far-fetched.
What later followed was numerous court cases against the Chamberlains,
probably murdered
and
her.
Even landed Lindy 3 years in prison. She was later released after a British tourist who fell to his death at Uluru. His remains were found in a dingo den, along with Azaria's baby jumpsuit.
Oh, maybe it was. Maybe it was, but how did the parents not realise? Wow. That's quite depressing.
Whether or not the dingoes did take the baby, or the jumpsuit, remains questionable. Today, Azaria's body has never been recovered.
Well, if it was eaten by dingoes, why would it have been recovered? Wow. I just still don't understand how the parents wouldn't have heard and realised that a dingo had come into the tent because surely the baby was in the same tent. How does that make sense?
And this remains an unsolved case. Number 1. The Flora Station Mystery. Probably the most haunting tale on this list. 2 boys, 16 and 17, vanished from their Outback cattle station. The discovery of their bodies months later only deepened the mystery. James Annetts, 16, and Simon Amos, 17, separately answered ads in 1986 to work as jackaroos, or cattle station hands, for those not familiar with the term.
I was going to say, I have no idea what a jackaroo is. Okay, a worker on a cattle farm.
The workplace or cattle station in question was Flora Valley Station, about 120 kilometres east of Halls Creek, with a population of 1,500 in West Australia.
I just want to say this. That cricket / Aussie rules pitch has seen better days, right? Has seen better days.
West Australia. The 2 boys were from city life and not accustomed to the harsh remote conditions of the outback. James was from Griffith in New South Wales, and Simon was from Adelaide in South Australia. When the boys arrived at Flora Station in West Australia, the cattle industry was in decline, and the station management had been cutting costs. Most of their tasks involved bore runs to check that windmills and other equipment were still functioning. On Wednesdays, when the boys would drive to the town of Flora Valley, they could get some release from the remote isolation by socialising with the townspeople when they went to pick up their mail and supplies. But on the afternoon of Monday, December 1st, 1986, the 2 boys did not reply to their twice daily radio checkups. The station owner visited the house where the 2 boys were staying and found their Datsun ute missing. No one knows where they were headed or just where they were going.
Maybe they just disappeared, renamed themselves. If the car was missing, they must have used it.
A 3-day aerial search of over 100,000 square kilometres failed to find anything. In April 1987, a bulldozer driver found the abandoned Datsun ute in the sand dunes about 500 kilometres southeast of Halls Creek. There were clear signs that the boys had tried to jumpstart the car. An SOS had been formed on the vehicle's roof with spanners and an arrow made with 2 branches and a star that pointed north. Further investigations revealed the boys' remains. The pair walked about 18 kilometres and made a camp where Simon Amos was found with a gunshot wound in his head. James Annetts walked a further kilometre and died, but not before scratching a last note to his family into a water bottle. The message on the lid reads, "James, my fault. I always love you, Mum and Dad. Jason, Michelle, Joanne."
So it's not really a mystery, but why were they there? I suppose that's the mystery. Why were they in that certain location? Why did they not respond to the call? Why, if they were only meant to be going to a certain location and back, i.e. the shops or whatnot, why did they take a detour? Obviously their car broke down. Okay, that's fine. And they obviously, one killed themselves and one maybe didn't kill themselves, but I don't know.
And on the handle was written, "I found peace." Both boys had left their wallets, cash, and letters from their families at their homesteads. In addition to the marked difference in decomposition of the boys' bodies, human blood was also found on James's hat that was not from him or Simon. Decades later, this remains an unsolved mystery. Tell us what you think.
That is odd, isn't it? Because you think actually it's not really a mystery, and then it says about blood from another human. I don't even know where to start with that. What an interesting video. An interesting video. I think you get these sort of mysteries, these mystery stories everywhere you go, and I know there's plenty in the UK. And you sometimes wonder, how have they not been solved? Surely there's a body somewhere, or I don't know. Puzzling. Very, very puzzling. What are your thoughts on these? Please let me know down in the comments. And make sure you like and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.